Not every painting surface is designed to be altered, scratched into or carved away, but Claybord is. Combining a smooth absorbent clay surface with exceptional durability, Ampersand Claybord opens the door to techniques that simply aren't possible on traditional canvas. In this video, Elaine Salazar takes a closer look at this incredibly versatile artist's surface.
Hi, my name is Elaine Salazar. I'm the President and CEO of Ampersand Art Supply, and I'm excited to be here at Bromleys to talk to the wonderful people here about the different Ampersand boards that we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Claybord. Claybord is an acid-free, pH-neutral clay coating. And the fact that it's a clay coating gives you lots of different advantages. The clay particles hold the pigments on the top of the clay coating, so you always have the ability to go back to white. So one of the wonderful pigments to work on is ink. Pen and ink artists love this because this surface dries really quickly as you're laying your pen and ink down. So check this out. See how quickly the ink soaks into the surface? This is fabulous for a pen and ink artist because you can work really quickly. You can rework the surface. Now you're going to see the magic. I laid this down earlier so it would dry completely, but see, this is already dry. I can come back and completely erase something that has been dry for over, I don't know, maybe an hour. You can see it's as smooth here as it is right here. We just laid this down now. Completely come back and erase the pigments on the surface. What I'm using is an oil-free steel wool. And then what's wonderful about this technique is I can come back and I can actually apply different Sgraffito techniques to create lots of wonderful detail, like maybe some grasses or some hair. We have this line tool that you can do nice cross hatching. And then you can come back and lay even more pigment on the surface. So it works really great with inks, but it also, even as smooth as the surface is, it works fantastic for graphite. Just going to lay in some dark color here with the graphite so you can see you can do the same level of Sgraffito techniques on the graphite. Come back in, cut into the surface. So why is this important? What this flexibility that allows you can do pieces like this. This is a piece by Charles Ewing. And you can come back in and see all the wonderful detail. So you can actually see all the fabulous detail that's created on the surface by just cutting back using a tool like this, using steel wool to come back and really lighten these areas up, or even these areas of light. I consider this like adding natural light back into the painting rather than having to use masking fluids or using paint, literally. You can take a look at all of this wonderful detail here around the squash blossom piece that's down here. Look at all the detail that was created doing just the Sgraffito technique. It's very much like the old scraper boards that were very popular in England. So this is what Claybord allows you to do. Claybord also is excellent for other kinds of pigments. You can use pretty much anything on Claybord. Because the surface is really smooth, people who like working with very high level detail really like this surface. Let's see what happens with acrylics on this board. Now, if you're going to lay acrylics on the board and you want to do that Sgraffito technique, you need to remember to lay them down in really thin layers. If you lay them down in thin layers, you'll be able to cut back into them. I'm going to lay a thick layer on here. Also, I'm going to show you a really neat trick. You can take your color pigment, and if you lay down an ink drawing, you can come over your ink drawing. The ink will stay on the surface with you ability to come back and do a glaze layer of another color on top. But we're going to let this dry so you can see once the acrylic dries, you'll be able to cut back into thin layers, but you can't cut back into the thick. So just know that if the Sgraffito techniques on Claybord, it's a little bit different. Inks, pencil, that all works on the board very well in terms of using those Sgraffito techniques. While we wait for that acrylic to dry, I'm going to just show you about colored pencil. Colored pencils work great on this surface. The only thing you need to do is make sure that you're not working with a really waxy pencil, because the waxy pencils actually take, do not layer as well. But I've got some Lyras here that do quite well. So we'll just show you, even though the surface is very smooth, I'll just show you that it can actually layer really nicely here. See how that color is just going on so nicely onto the board? So you can do a lot of layering on this. And again, just make sure you're not working with such a waxy pencil that pulls the first layer out. But look how wonderful. I can come back again with these Sgraffito techniques and start pulling off, creating just slight detail, on the board. Come back in with some more. Layer it in, just to give it some depth. And this is what's great about working on Claybord. You could work back and forth, just as you did on this painting. Is Charles Ewing applied ink drawing to it, and then he layered another layer. He came back and pulled things off, come back and adjusted. That's how forgiving the Claybord is. So now this is dry, so you're going to see how on the thin areas I can come back and easily remove pigment. Again, remember on Claybord, what's happening is the layer of pigment is laying on the top layer of the clay coating, so you always have this ability to come back and remove, and then come back and add more pigment, another layer of color, so you have ability to really come back and do lots of layering. Let's see. Where I've laid down the color of blue, then I've come in with the color of yellow. I can let that dry, cut back into the surface, and then layer again. So the amount of layering you can do really helps you create a lot of depth in your painting. Now, this area where we kind of really layered in the acrylic, it's much more difficult. You can see it just doesn't come off as easily and as smoothly. So just remember, if you layer a lot of acrylic on the board, which is a really great advantage of working on this rigid surface, is that you can do really impasto painting, or you can do really thin layers. It's the thin layers on acrylic that you're going to be able to cut back, but you won't be able to do that on anything you lay down thick. In summary, you can see just how inks work on the Claybord. And here's the graphite, see with the detail, and here's some acrylic. The other kind of media that works really well on Claybord are egg tempera. These boards are very much like the chalk gessels that were used back in the Renaissance, very absorbent. So egg tempera works very great on this surface. Airbrush, because when you lay airbrush on the board, it's coming through this process of the gun atomizing the particles of the pigment. So you can remove even acrylic paint very easily when you're working with airbrush. And then the best thing of all, one of the advantages of Claybord is that you can seal the surface with a fixative, and then you don't have to frame it under glass. huge advantage of a lot of our boards. So imagine, you don't have to put graphite under glass, you don't have to put ink under glass.
From ultra-smooth painting surfaces to watercolour panels and specialist mixed media boards, there's a lot more to explore in the Ampersand range. Watch the rest of this series for an in-depth look at each surface, or visit Bromleys to shop the full collection. And of course, a huge thank you to Elaine Salazar for joining us and showing just how versatile Ampersand panels can be.